Good afternoon to you. Mark Suttoth, HurricaneTrack.com, here with your hurricane outlook and discussion for the 17th of June, 2015. Things are starting to calm down a little bit in the tropics, though we still have the remnants of Tropical Storm Bill now over the northeast part of Texas. The National Hurricane Center has concluded its advisories on the depression. Now it is being handled by the WPC, right there, the Weather Prediction Center, and they will continue to handle all of the different advisories from Tropical Depression Bill. There you go. This used to be called the See, I can't even say it. The Hydrometeorological Prediction Center, and I guess not too many people could say it effectively, so it was changed to the Weather Prediction Center. That's not the real reason, but that's what I'm saying. So the latest advisory, here it is, Tropical Depression Bill. Right now, the center of Tropical Depression Bill moving towards the Dallas-Fort Worth metropolitan area. You don't see that very often, but there it is right there. Let's take a look at a satellite chart, picture and animation of where Bill is currently located. And let me find one of these down here that shows better what I'm looking for. Gulf of Mexico, Central United States. Here we go. A nice animated GIF image. And we can zoom in, and there's Bill swirling right over the DFW area. Still has a little bit of a tail coming out of the Gulf of Mexico, feeding in that moisture. You can see the outline of the big, powerful mid and upper level ridge over the eastern United States, underneath which it is very, very hot across this region, especially really everywhere underneath that big old ridge of high pressure, and everything moving up and around it, as you would expect with that clockwise flow of that mid and upper level ridge. National Weather Service shows us where all the different watches and warnings are associated with Bill and its remnants, and you can see that's starting to expand now up through and into the upper to mid Mississippi Valley. I guess that's what you call this area, and then eventually into the Ohio Valley, and then you see on the periphery of all of this heat right here. So Bill sandwiched in the middle, and we have all kinds of heat issues going on. Very, very hot in the desert southwest where it should be, and then also very hot and quite oppressive here in the south and east. Now let me just remind you one more time, I do this often, that this is a fantastic resource right here. You go in, you put your zip code, for example mine is 28405, and not a 6 there, and you get all kinds of pertinent information to your local area. And that's what's important, because you want to know what's going to happen in your area. You got the big picture with, you know, the larger maps and the larger radar shots, etc. But if I want to know what's going on right here in the Wilmington area, I have these current hazardous weather condition bulletins right here, the heat advisory info, the hazardous weather outlook. And if you were in a hurricane area where there's going to be the potential for a hurricane or tropical storm landfall, this would be populated with hurricane local statements, flood statements, things of that nature. So take advantage of the National Weather Service. It's there for you. Just put your zip code in and you get all this great information, including, if you really want to have some interesting insight as to what's going on, scroll down to this additional forecasts and information area, and then click on that guy right there, forecast discussion. That is an awesome piece of information written by a real person, not generated by computers. And it tells you the synopsis, what's going on overall, like the synopsis of a book or a movie or a play. And then, of course, it has the near-term information, and then the long-term, short-term, everything in between. And like I said, these are the initials of the people that were involved in creating it. The authors, if you will. So take advantage of that. Now, why did we have Bill at all? Well, several weeks ago, we started a very strong amplification of the Madden-Julian oscillation, the MJO, really amplified into phases 1 and 2, and history shows us that when that happens, we typically have a burst of activity in the eastern Pacific, and usually something happens in the Atlantic Basin. When it's this early in the season, that's typically going to be confined to the western parts of the Atlantic Basin and not basin-wide. Now, if we get an amplification like this in August and September, wow, you know, we could have 2 or 3 big storms develop. Might be all we see the rest of the year. but we got to look and see if this happens again. So this is where we've been, and this created the conditions favorable to spawn Andres in the Pacific, Blanca in the Pacific, Carlos in the Pacific, and then Bill in the Gulf of Mexico. Now the MJO going into the null phase, or very little MJO activity, and then the GFS may want to start it over again, maybe heading out back towards phases 8 and 1 with time. A couple weeks away, we'll see how that pans out. The Euro, somewhat similar. It shows the major amplification that we had, also going basically into the null phase, but maybe going around globally like it should do. This is kind of a intertropical moving phenomenon in the atmosphere. This upward motion that promotes tropical convection typically moves from west to east around the tropics. But either way, over the next couple of weeks, it's not in phases 1 and 2, and so we shouldn't see much development chances at all in the Atlantic Basin or the Eastern Pacific for that matter. Hey, a real quick look at the El Nino that's going on. This is the subsurface updated a few days ago now, June the 12th. Take a look at this very large pool of cold water lurking in the extreme western Pacific. And then, of course, you juxtapose that to the very large area of warm anomalies in the eastern 3/5 of the Pacific, I think you could say. And then there's very warm water lurking below the surface in the eastern Pacific. The El Nino very firmly entrenched right now, but it's not going to be long that eventually this cold water pool will erode away at this warm water pool, and this will shrink away, and it'll kind of exhaust itself probably towards the fall and into the winter. And then next hurricane season, and probably the one after that, could be very interesting, as history has shown us in the past. We won't worry about that right now, but it's just amazing that we can watch this on about a 10-day basis as this information gets updated. And right now the El Nino holding strong, not really getting any stronger. You saw all that cold water in the western Pacific. There's no reinforcing shot of subsurface warmth coming in, but the pattern is kind of holding in this El Nino regime, and it's there, and we'll see what happens over the next few months in the Atlantic Basin and, of course, the Pacific. But for now, we're watching Bill and its remnants. A lot of rain headed for a lot of people. Just stay aware, and on top of it, use common sense, and everybody should be okay. All right, well, that's it from me for today. I'm Mark Sudduth again here for HurricaneTrack.com. Thanks, as always, for tuning in. If you're under those heat ridges, stay cool out there, and I'll talk to you again tomorrow.